Welcome to the year 4 of the showcase for the Carbon to Value initiative. Welcome in New York. I'm Fred Clare. I'm the director of the Carbon to Value initiative. I'll be your host for this event. It's really a pleasure to have you here. I know some of you have traveled pretty far away, so thank you. And thank you for everybody for coming for your time. For people who are not familiar with C2V, it's a pretty unique program. It's a one where we have created really a collaborative ecosystem where government, startups, corporates, and non-for-profits collaborate to accelerate the path for carbontech. The goal is to building new carbontech value chains, making it cost-effective and operating at scale. We are here tonight to celebrate the year 4, the achievement of year 4, and especially the startups that have participated in the program. And I'm very excited for them to present about their technology and the progress they've made. But before we get there, I would like to invite our senior vice dean for NYU Tandon School of Engineering to tell us a little bit more about NYU. As you may have noticed, C2V is a partnership between the Urban Future Lab at NYU Tandon School of Engineering, Greentown Labs, and Fraunhofer USA. And together we bring the best of support system for innovation and entrepreneurship through startup acceleration, startup incubation, and applied research and development. With that, I'd like to welcome Ire to the stage, and welcome Ire. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to speak. Okay, I'm the senior vice dean. That sounds like a lot of administration, but I actually have a group. I conduct research, and in fact, there's a startup out of my lab, Heliotrope, that does coatings for solar cells. So I am very appreciative of this ecosystem and the interaction that takes place in events like this. NYU Tandon is proud to provide a home for Carbon to Value initiative and a new generation of climate tech innovators. As an engineering school, we've long believed that in a world threatened by pollution and climate change, engineering holds to the key to a greener and healthier future, and also prosperous. Our researchers, our faculty and students are focused on developing solutions that can help the world thrive technologically as well as economically without compromising the well-being of future generations. Dozens of our faculty members participate in what we call the Sustainable Engineering Initiative. Their purpose is to find solutions to avoid, mitigate, and remediate emissions and develop strategies to adapt to these environmental challenges. Avoid, mitigate, remediate, and adapt. Taken together, they're a holistic approach. And I remember those 4 words very well because this framework was actually established in my living room, in my dining room. I called 4 assistant professors, and I told them that I would cook Turkish for them. And I did, and they had a working session, and they provided this framework, and the initiative was actually born in my dining room. Juan de Pablo, the university's inaugural executive vice president for global science and tech, also serves as Tandon's executive dean, has talked about the need for us to be a part of a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem that will generate high-tech jobs, a place where some of the greatest technologies of tomorrow are invented and deployed. Carbon to Value initiative meshes with that vision. The initiative is an integral part of our Urban Future Labs, a hub for best-in-class climate tech startups with a focus on clean energy and sustainable urban infrastructure solutions. The Urban Future Lab also encompasses a number of things. For example, the Accelerator for a Clean and Resilient Economy, the longest-running climate tech incubator in New York City, the Offshore Wind Innovation Hub, Innovate UK's Global Incubator Program, which helps promising British climate tech companies gain a foothold here, and Clean Startup, a training program for aspiring clean energy professionals. Collectively, The companies that have participated in Urban Future Labs entrepreneurial programs have raised $2.9 billion in funding and created over 4,000 jobs. I find that remarkable. They have 88% survival rate. That compares to the national average of 20%. So they're doing something right. The survival of the planet depends on the survival of companies in the carbon capture space. Consider that an estimated 100 gigatons of carbon in the form of carbon dioxide must be removed from the atmosphere by 2050 in order to avert most severe consequences of the climate change. We have some headwinds, but I think they're temporary. We should keep our vision and keep going. This cohort and the 3 that came before it are making strides towards that goal. Speaking of previous cohorts, is Gregory Constantine from AIRCO here? Hi, there you go, I see you. Very familiar with AIRCO. Before my job as the Senior Vice Dean, I was the chair of the Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. And we started a program within the department to provide incubator lab space, wet lab space for companies that needed it. And AIRCO was the first to be there. They started with 1 hood and eventually took over the entire lab. I still have my small vodka. I haven't drunk it yet, but at some point I will to celebrate. So NYU Tandon and I, we had a fruitful, long and fruitful relationship. Gregory and his co-founder have worked closely with Miguel Modestino, who directs Sustainable Engineering Initiative. He was one of the people eating the Turkish food that I was cooking to come up with the Sustainable Engineering Initiative. And we're excited to provide them with space in our chemical engineering labs as they work to develop carbon negative rocket fuel. I like to think that we played a small role in their success, which I think you're going to hear about shortly. I won't take much more of your time. I know that you have some exciting things to hear, and you have an exciting program. So let me wrap up by encouraging you to explore the ways you can partner with NYU Tandon and tell us how we can help you. If we can, we will. And that goes with whether you're a student seeking to contribute to a more sustainable future, an entrepreneur eager to do your part to advance climate tech, or an industry leader interested in collaborating on research and development. So I think it's upon us to work together for the common good. And the fact that we have so many people here collaborating, listening to each other, learning from each other, forming the networks is a very good start. Thank you.
Thank you, Ire. We're really grateful to have the support of such visionary leadership at Tandon, committed to fostering entrepreneurship and innovation as part of the school's DNA, especially when it comes to developing engineered solutions to solve energy and sustainability challenges. Now, let me go a little bit in detail about C2V before we hear from the companies themselves. We have supported 35 companies over the last 4 years. Very proud of very diverse group of companies. We receive every year about 120 applications on average, so it's a very selective group of companies. And the whole goal, the whole thesis around C2V is you are not going to be able to scale novel hardware technologies like carbontech without partnership, because it's capital intensive. There is a lot of technology risk, there's a lot of market risk, there's a lot of policy risk. And so partners are going to be critical, especially industry partners who are already operating at scale in other markets or with other technologies. We are internationally broad with the type of technologies, even though our name suggests that we might just focus on like CO2 to something, which is kind of the core. We also recognize that you need to be efficient on the capture side. You need to have solutions to store carbon. You have novel approaches that uses ocean water to capture CO2. You need to remove CO2 from the air. You can use biomass as a media to, photosynthesis already does a lot of the capture for us. So why don't we valorize waste biomass? So you can see, a lot of different approaches. And we like that diversity, and we think the success of carbontech relies in this diversity. Over the last year, we had impressive progress of these companies, despite very challenging funding, policy, and market conditions. For example, CarbonQuest, which is a point source capture that has been built here in New York. They have actually their first commercial system operating near Central Park. They just closed 20 million of a Series A to expand and look at data centers as a potential market. Air Company, we'll talk about them, but they closed a Series B, which was a huge achievement. So more on that very soon. And Planetary, a year 1 company, as well as Capture 6, a year 3 company, closed respectively an 11 million Series A round and a 20 million Series A and project finance round. We're also seeing, I was talking about partnership and collaboration. One thing that happened over the last year is a mineralization company called Carbon Free. They are based in San Antonio, Texas. They have entered a definitive commercial agreement to build a 50,000 ton per year mineralization plant in Gary, Indiana at the US Steel site. And that's a very significant commercial project. It's about a $150 million investment. And that has happened through the partnership that Carbon Free made with Fluor during the first year of C2V. As you know, engineering, procurement, construction is a key part in scaling this project. And that relationship between Carbon Free and Fluor really enabled that commercial project. So I want to thank Fluor for being a long-time partner and enabling this really huge success story for C2V. We're also seeing some collaboration between startups themselves. So that's something we did not necessarily expect. But CarbonQuest, that I mentioned already, they actually announced a partnership with Carbfix to explore how they could provide a package solution for projects in North America to capture and sequester the carbon. All these successes are reflected in all these incredible metrics. I'm not going to run through them. But again, I think what we are proud and what we are striving towards is the partnerships that are really, frankly, really hard to achieve, especially between large corporates and startups. We have a methodical process and approach to this. And that's what you can see on the right in these metrics that I have talked a little bit about qualitatively, but that we track quantitatively. None of this would be possible without our industry partners, what we call the CLC, that stands for the Carbontech Leadership Council. They are all here for different reasons. They all want to see, commercializing new tech or licensing new tech. They all want to support the startups, potentially by providing them services and materials. Half of them wants to invest in companies that actually have capital to put to work. And the other half also are working, obviously, to lower the Scope 3, Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions. So buying low-carbon products or directly capturing CO2 at the sites to reduce their emissions. And what's really interesting, and also what makes me proud of C2V, is diverse nature and industries that they operate in. Because carbontech is a platform technology. Very often you have a lot of applications. And so you can easily get lost in which industry should I go after, what is the primary use case. With C2V, startups can navigate different use cases at the same time and select which one will make the most sense. And we've seen companies pivoting during C2V. We have seen companies confirming their beachhead, and I think that's a very valuable thing to have so many different industry verticals involved and represented here. These are not just logos on a wall, they are actually people. We have senior executive buy-in that is very important for us to make sure the organization are committed from the top. And beyond this senior executive, we have over 40 people that are actively involved in the program, whether it's to define and refine the technology focus areas, whether it's to help with startup evaluation during down selection, and of course, when it's time to work with the companies, hand in hand with the companies. So I want to thank all the CLC members, and I think we can give them a shout out, please. Before we go into our fireside chat with Air Company, I want to, recognize the contribution of the innovators. I'm very admirative of your courage, your perseverance, and your dedication to commercialize, hard tech innovation that often starts with an idea or in a lab, especially when these innovations, they rely on very heavily scientific and engineered breakthrough, and they require a massive amount of capital to have an impact and scale. And that's really a difficult journey you're on, and that's why we are here to support any way we can. It's really been an honor to support you guys for the last 6 months. You can count on C2V to be part of the rest of your journey. I really wish you all the best. I can't wait for the audience to hear from you. And congratulations to having completed the program, and maybe we can give them a first round of applause before we hear from them. Now, speaking of innovators, it's a pleasure to welcome Gregory Constantine, who's co-founder and CEO at AIRCO, and we'll have a little fireside chat on the stage. So I've been told it should be no more than 40 seconds, so I'm going to put my little stopwatch on, and we'll set up the stage. Well, it's very nice to be with you, Greg. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's funny, actually, we never met in person. So
we were part of the cohort in the pandemic days.
COVID
Yep.
era, and then you got really busy, which we like. So thanks for being here. I maybe want to start with maybe your, tell us very quickly about, your journey, and then AIRCO's journey. You were part of the 2021 cohort, so the first cohort. You're also still part of the Urban Future Lab, even though you kind of grew us out, I would say. But very quickly, who are you and what is AIRCO doing?
Firstly, just want to say how kind of proud we are not only to be a part of the program, but to see how well you and the entire team have seen it through from Cohort 1 all the way through to Cohort 4, which is actually incredible to just see. So we're thrilled to have been a part of Cohort 1, and the fact that it's now multiple years in, multiple partners, the statistics of all the companies that have gone through, the amount of money that's been raised is truly incredible. So I think, firstly, a big round of applause to you and the whole group here. So
Thank you.
You may be able to tell from the voice. From Australia originally. I moved to the US about 10 years ago, and we started on a journey to try to create a business that was really built around a mission and built around a purpose to try to commercialize really deep technologies. And we've been fortunate to have a moderate level of success in that the lights are still on and the company's still running, but it's a massive challenge. And the goal of the business has been to have the most amount of impact as possible, and that starts with reducing the amount of CO2 emissions that we can in order to create useful products that we believe can help shape our future. So we started the company around 2018 and launched a slew of products just before the pandemic and through the pandemic. And the goal of the business was to try to monetize our research and development. So actually taking carbon and trying to produce something of value while scaling the business in parallel, and hopefully using some of that revenue to get to where we're at today, which is transitioning into the largest amount of impact when you're creating large industrial products.
And actually, maybe you can talk a little bit about where the company is now, what kind of milestone you're looking at in terms of the team, how big is the team, where are you in the funding, what maybe the funding strategy was up to now, any sort of where you are with customers on the market, and maybe technology scale-up wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I mean, you touched on it earlier. You cannot do anything without partners. I think from our perspective, collaboration is just so key for any early stage startup or any business as a whole. And we've been really fortunate to be able to work with obviously groups like NYU that, as you heard earlier, housed our lab that went from one fume hood to taking over the whole lab to now we've been lucky enough to be able to graduate and move into our own space as well. But that journey is one that you definitely need partnerships along the way, and so NYU's been a great one for that. The business strategy as a whole, as I kind of touched on before, was really about trying to get to where we're at today, and I'll touch on that a little bit. But you have to set goals along the way and make really measurable set measurable KPIs and really try to hit those as well. Fortunately today we're about 110 people from an organizational size. We've just gone through our Series B fundraise, and the business has raised about $110 million of equity capital to date over the course of the lifetime of the business. Started off as 2 individuals, and then over the course of about an 18-month stretch went from 10 to 100. So had some pretty hyper growth in that period, off the back of a lot of success of the market at the time. And so you kind of ride the waves of the market, but stay true to what it is that you're trying to achieve within your business as well. And we've been fortunate to be at a point that we're at today where we can actually show a lot of the results through the work that's being done.
And on the technology side, like where are you today? And a lot of companies, they're like at the lab or they have a little pilot. I'm curious to know, what's that look like for you now?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can talk about technology in a variety of ways. We like to use our TRL levels, but I'll talk about kind of revenue, size and stage of the business as well. So we're based here in New York. We operate a lab in New York. We also operate a pilot facility, and we also operate a small demonstration facility up in the Niagara area as well. And so for those of you who are unaware, the core of our business is taking carbon dioxide and producing chemicals and fuels, namely ethanol, methanol, and some aviation fuel as well. And so the stage that we are trying to go to post Series B is to deploy our next scale of technology, which will see us through TRL 7, and then thereon after is really about scaling up to true commercial scales. And we've got customers and partners from 2 sectors of our business. We really focus on government and defense, which is a growing sector within our business, and I can talk a little bit about it if that's useful as well. And then true large-scale commercial sector within our business. So we partner with groups like airlines and other strategics that are either investors of ours or just true commercial partners of ours.
Yeah, actually, let's go there, because on the partnership side, I'm curious to know any specific examples of partnership that have helped you scale beyond funding partners, and how you assess and select partners. What makes a great partner for our company?
So I think for any business, you have to decide, obviously, what is important, what is true to you, and what remains true for your business. For us, from a partnership perspective, the values have to be aligned. We have to be thinking about the same things and trying to work towards the same overarching mission. However, you also have to understand that at the end of the day, you are running and operating a business as well. And so, we've been very lucky and fortunate to work with a lot of government groups from the very early onset of our business. And I think that there are a lot of there's always a topic of conversation of it's often quite difficult to go and work with government bodies, government entities, sometimes because of the red tape, sometimes because of the pace in which they move. But the counter argument to that is that they really, and at least in our case, they have really allowed us to work and spur innovation without necessarily being so cost-centric. Because if you're going and working on a technology and truly only working with a commercial partner like an airline, it all comes down to how much product you can produce, how cheap you can produce it. The inverse of that is, when working with, groups like NASA that we do, groups like the Department of Defense, cost is important, but what's more important is, can you make it work? Can you make it work? And so, because you're going to be potentially producing these products in a variety of unusual circumstances that aren't, traditional for for a commercial environment, you're allowed that flexibility or that elasticity on price, which then leads you to maybe try new things from an innovation perspective. So those partners are really, really key and have been key to our to getting to this point today.
Very cool. Actually, I want to just dig a little bit on the DoD partnership. And fun fact is that the Defense Innovation Unit, they, one day reached out to us and they said, look, we have this really cool program. Can you tell AIRCO to apply? I'm like, what is this? I don't want to waste their time. And like, he kind of had to convince, like everybody, when you want to talk to our startups, we always sort of try to screen them a little bit. Right. And so he explained the program that it can result in like procurement and so on. And so I'll obviously forwarded you the thing and you got in touch. I didn't see what happened behind the scene, and I think that's why we want to have a little bit of your insight is like how did it happen? What was the results? And what is the significance of that partnership right now for our company?
So I think for any early stage business or startup, focus is just so key, and it's very easy to just jump to the shiny object wherever it is because you might see value there. And so I'll kind of set that as the backdrop because we've struggled with that. I know a lot of other companies and founders and entrepreneurs struggle with it. And so you need to try to find that balance. And so when it came to the DIU, we were approached with a proposition of, there's a small pool of funding here. We want you to try to create a product for us. We've gone and scoured, the country, and we can't find any folks that are able to do it. It's a bit of an impossible task to do, but we've heard about you, and we think that we'd like to, chat to you about it. And fortunately enough for us, we were, several years into our business, and so we're at the point where, to your point, Frederick, it's we have to understand. If we're going to put all of our time and effort and energy into this for this potential small pool of funding, like what's on the other side of that? What does it mean for us? And when told about the potential long-term opportunity, we said yes, let's embark on this endeavor. So we produced some jet fuel for them. We actually flew it in an unmanned plane, which was the first flight that was done on a fuel that was made 100% from CO2 and into an engine as well. And so that then led on for their confidence in us, which led to us pitching for other contracts, which we eventually won as well. And so while kind of going against our original theory of staying focused on what the task is at hand, there are areas that you really need to focus on if you can see the potential long-term value, and that was definitely one of them, of which we've now won several subsequent contracts from the US government.
And I understand now it's a significant part of the revenue today.
It's the largest part of our revenue today, for sure. Yep.
That's very interesting. I want to switch gear a little bit, and I think that's a topic that is dear to my heart because at the end of the day, startups, they're also people, and the psychological nature of like the barrier that you face is really huge. And so, some kind of maybe lessons learned about you as an entrepreneur, right? So, one question that I have is like maybe a classic question, but what lesson did you learn kind of the hard way? Something that like you made a mistake, or it's like that was really painful and that I learned my lesson here. If you had to share with our fellow there, but I mean the audience in general.
Yeah, they're all quite cheesy. I'm wearing a hat today to cover the grey hairs from all the pain and suffering that we've been through. Look, I think as a lot of entrepreneurs or founders of a company, the biggest challenges that we have faced, of course, are trying to innovate through technology, but genuinely are just, you're trying to keep the lights on at the end of the day. And so that the kind of the pain, I would say, that we go through to try to do that is part of the journey as well. And I think if you're prepared for that and you have a resilient kind of mindset, and at a sound of in sounding extremely cliched, but it is that persistence and that mindset that gets you through to solving those problems. And so for us, and for me particularly, and some of our team, it's always just about kind of leaving no stone unturned. Like you just have to just keep persevering. If you believe in your mission, if you believe in the objective, if you believe in the product, and you have that vision of where you want to go, the support of your team will be there throughout it all, but you as the leader need to really instill that, and that's what will hopefully get you through to the next, to the next phase and taking those learnings. I mean, there's been multiple times where we've been within a week or 2 weeks of running out of money and in these real life situations where if it wasn't for the folks around you, the teams around you, but ultimately the partners that are around you as well, you wouldn't be able to progress. So just it comes down to that true grit of of being a business owner and an entrepreneur, and that's what makes it exciting as well. And fortunately we're up here being able to kind of speak about that journey as well.
Yeah, you have to like pain. You've been doing this for what, like 8 years, or when did you start Air Company?
Yeah, about
AIRCO?
7 years now.
7 years.
Yep.
What was like a really most sort of fun, joyful moment?
There's been so many, so many. I think you touched on earlier. In our very first product that we put out was actually a vodka product. We took carbon dioxide and we turned it into ethanol. And on a pathway to try to scale this technology, we looked at the array of industries that ethanol was a part of, and the ones where the value of the product was the highest and the amount of product that you needed was the smallest. And if you think about like the fragrance industry and the beverage industry, and so we said, we think we can generate some revenue for our business in the early stages, but more importantly, we think that this is a way to actually put a product in front of people that can show them that you can turn carbon to value. You literally can do it because you're drinking it. And so we launched this product right before COVID, and we were selling it in every Michelin star restaurant in New York and California, and we certainly had a lot of fun, just trying to help climate change by drinking our way through it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and actually Morgan, he's on your team since forever as well, and at the time he was like, no, I'm in Miami trying to sell this vodka to this bar. I'm like, what are you guys doing? That's so cool. And maybe in the same vein, when it's really hard, when you really have a tough time and you're like really in a low, what keeps you going? Like what is the thing that you see beyond the mountains and makes you go around it?
I have this theory that there's nothing that 10,000 or 20,000 steps can't solve, and in the sense that for me specifically, when things get really tough or really, really stressful, I just leave the phone and laptop at home and I just go run until I can't run anymore. And it's on those runs where you really, for me at least, I get to really clear my head, really kind of take away all the things that are going on, and it kind of allows you to focus. And that's one of the things that truly allows me to see around the corner in a lot of respect, is just taking a break from what you're doing, trying to take yourself out of it, and then hopefully being able to come back with a fresh mindset. I think it's just so important to being able to get to where the points in which you want to get to. Yeah.
Cool. Very nice. Maybe a less fun topic, but I wanted to touch on. I think it's something that a lot of people have in the mind, is like with the new administration. What kind of scenarios do you plan? In this year and ahead, in terms of how you see the federal support for CCU. How do you hedge this? How do you adapt your go-to-market strategy? How do you think about this?
I think irrespective of administration, we adapt our go-to-market strategy regardless, right? We're always, every quarter, re-looking at our strategy, re-looking at what's happening in the country, re-looking at what's happening globally, and determining, is the strategy that we have today still reign true, and will it reign true in the future as well? So I think, from our perspective, the fact that we have a dual-pronged business across government defense and commercial, but we've always had a global mindset. And if you think about areas outside the US like the UK and EU, where there are still really strong mandates in place for some of the things that we're doing, we feel really confident about the business. But irrespective of that, we're always reviewing the strategy regardless of what's happening, because things change not just in the US but around the world all the time. And as long as you have your vision and you're still focusing on that technological development that's needed, you have to always review the strategy, and hopefully it still reigns true. And for us, and the products that we create, it's a lot of it, and all of it is driven by cost, no matter what. And so at the end of the day, we're lucky to be out of the stage of innovation, but in a new stage of, you've proven it, but now you have to really prove that it works at scale, and that's the most important thing.
So thanks for the transition. So like looking ahead, now what's ahead? What's the big milestones over the next 6 months, 12 months? And in these milestones, what's the hardest? What's the biggest challenge that you have to solve?
I think with any business, you always have to have your mind set on what your end goal is, but setting those milestones for you to hit are so important, so that not only that you can show progress, in order to get to those next points, but so that your teams as well have the ability to see the progress that you are making along the way, because you have to also remember we are all people and we're also still human as well. And so seeing a lot of that progress is really important. This year we're deploying 2 new pieces of technology that fits within our entire master plan as well of scale up, but it's all about scale up, right? At the end of the day, we really view ourselves as a technology company. But in order to be one, you have to really prove that this can work. Again, not just on the small scales, not just on the intermediary scales, but truly at commercial scale, with cost being the most central point of all of that. And if it doesn't work, or if you see that it's not working, you have to rethink about your strategy, rethink about your customers, and try to fit within where you think you can, because at the end of the day, you're trying to sell either a technology or a product, and there has to be someone on the other side of that purchasing it.
And so on these technology, milestones or other milestones, what are the challenges that you see in terms of like where you may, and also maybe when you might need external help, and maybe this could be a call for partners here, but in general, just your perception of challenge and risk ahead.
A lot of it now is really around kind of the meat and potatoes, but like operational execution, right? It's like, if you've shown that a thing's working, you've got enough funding, or at least at a point in time, and you're showing that the customer is there. It's really just about, can you execute against your plan? And that's damn hard to do. Like, it's really tough, right? You're setting, to go out and actually execute, and everyone talks about execution, and everyone just thinks that you just go out and you do the work and it happens, but it's really not that simple and not that easy. And I think separate to that as well, capital is always some of the biggest challenges for companies in this space, right? There's a lot of capital that's required for a lot of these deep technologies and infrastructure businesses as well. And so, capital is at the heart of everything. And, for a lot of these businesses to be able to persist, the capital needs to be there. And that's part of the challenge as well.
And on the capital, for the next scale, do you anticipate to use most of your Series B, some of your Series B? What's the capital stack look like for that next scale that will be capital intensive and not cheap, I guess?
Yeah, that will be a new pool of capital. Yep. So a lot of the Series B has gone towards the pieces of technology that we are deploying inside this year as well, and for a lot of the scale up to get towards the end of this year and into next year. For that next true level of commercial scale will be new pools of capital, and so hopefully both non-dilutive but also dilutive sources of capital as well.
Great. Well, we are time,
Perfect.
But thank you so much. Great. I think we can give him a round of applause. Thanks for all the progress. And we don't have time for Q&A, but I invite you to connect with Greg during the networking. The moment that everybody has waited for the startup presentation. It's really a pleasure to have Dom from our team. He's going to lead us through this. Dom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fred. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. I've been working on the C2V program since year 2, but this is actually my first final showcase, thanks to many scheduling conflicts. So I'm really pleased to be here, really excited to be introducing you to our main event, which is the Year for Startups, and they've done just such a wonderful job this year, and so really excited to hear about all their progress and the things they've been doing with the CLC and what they've been doing with their companies. So each company tonight will have 3 minutes to present, so it's definitely a lightning presentation. And like I said, they'll talk a little bit about their companies, their technology, what they've done in C2V, and then what they're doing next. Before we get to the meat of it, I just wanted to share a little analogy that I like to think about, even though it's very oversimplified. I like to think about carbontech value chains like building a railway. You can't build a railway that's successful without all the stops that you would need to get there. And so if there's missing tracks, you're not going to get from point A to point B. And so each individual step of the carbontech cycle is the same. We can't just support sequestration or conversion to value-added products or capture technologies. Each step on the train is critical to making carbon removal and carbon utilization work at scale. We need to get the train from point A to point B, and that requires all the stops and all the tracks. There we go, thank you. So I'm proud to say that after 4 years and 4 cohorts with C2V, we really have done that. We've connected that railway, and we've opened a new Grand Central, C2V, bringing together players from across the value chain and connecting capture to conversion, utilization, and storage. And so our cohort tonight is the same. We have a variety of technologies from across the carbontech value chain. So we have companies capturing carbon from multiple sources. We even have chemical recycling, and we have conversion to critical materials and food and fuels. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first startup to the stage tonight. And the first stop on the carbontech value chain, Flare. So I'm going to invite Malte Fucht, CEO of electrochemical DAC company, who's come all the way from Germany to be with us tonight. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Very excited to kick us off. So as Dom said, my name is Malte. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Flare, and I'm German. So the reason I'm mentioning this to you again is because the place I grew up in Germany has a tradition which is called a Kehrwoche. So what it means is actually people in Germany religiously take out their trash and clean their hallway once a week and really stick to it, right? We haven't done such a Kehrwoche for our atmosphere in decades. And the result of that is still rising CO2 concentrations and the need for decarbonization, but also, in addition, effective and especially cost-effective ways to capture CO2 from ambient air for either storage or utilization. Now, the problem with direct air capture is that it's mainly costly. So this is where Flare comes in. We've developed a purely electric approach to direct air capture that can do low energies and therefore low costs. Now, since the start of the program, we're fortunate to hit a couple of inflection points as a business. First and foremost, we started operations of our full TL6 pilot back in Munich. This is already showing that our technology is up to 3 times more energy effective compared to conventional technologies. It's fully compatible with renewables, and it's scalable. Because the core technology that we produce, it's called a hydrolyzer, is based on existing components, and in fact, we're using some of the membranes of one of the partners of the C2V program, which is Gore. Secondly, we're able to announce the world's first electrochemical direct air capture offtake with a volume of $30 million, and we're effectively serving customers such as Google, JP Morgan, Shopify, Stripe, or McKinsey, and helping them decarbonize their hard-to-abate emissions. In order to do so, we need to build a plant to deliver the credits. And we're doing just that. So we're going to build the world's first behind-the-meter and direct air capture integration in Canada. And especially Fleur and Sunil and the team, they've been exceptional, helpful in guiding us through our EPC selection and also convincing us that actually, yes, large EPCs can be fast and nimble. And then we've got to store the CO2, right? And so we've been able to partner with Shell. So this is a picture of one of my co-founders and Arlo from Shell being up in Canada, in Edmonton, visiting one of their wells for CO2 injection. And so we've been able to sign an MOU on the storage part, and they are going to potentially become a partner in the project. So last but not least, this is our road ahead. We're building the first commercial plant. It's 20,000 tons of CO2 per year, and it really takes the village to make it happen, and we'd be really, really looking forward to staying in touch with all of the partners that we met throughout the program. We've been only 2.5 years old. I've got 2 amazing co-founders. The team is now over 30 people. We've raised a seed round last year as well, and are backed by some of the best investors, but also advisors, including the former Climeworks CTO. Lastly, I really want to thank Frederick and Dom and the whole team. You guys been really exceptional, and what I mean is that you truly understand what it means that, you know, when you go through such a crazy period, there's shifting schedule and priorities, and you guys been really helpful as a program, but also accommodating for sometimes our special wishes. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Malta. So next, let's take our eyes away from the sky and back down to Earth where the emissions happen in the first place. So I'd like to invite Erica Nemser, CEO, and John Kurloff, VP of Engineering at Ardent, who is coming to us tonight from Delaware and Long Island. Welcome, guys.
Hey everyone, thank you for coming. I indeed am going to talk about point source carbon capture and how we deliver that with membranes. And fundamentally, we're addressing the challenge of heavy industry in the hard to abate sectors. So think about steel, cement, chemicals, power gen for AI and other things. They have locked in emissions, and there's a challenge of how do they reduce that CO2 in the course of new infrastructure that's going in and existing infrastructure. The challenge for those industries is point source carbon capture that's not just low cost, which is what we can deliver with a novel membrane solution that reduces CapEx and reduces OpEx, so you're taking out the cost of CO2 capture. But more importantly, sorry guys, more importantly, that I'm so used to being mic'd, I forget when I'm not mic'd. More importantly, we can deliver carbon capture with the key attributes that are important to making it practical in an industrial environment. And you see that list here. So when we meet with our partners and our customers, it's things like fully electrified, no solvents, can handle poisons, can fit in an existing facility with a small footprint and modular. That's what matters between a not deployed interesting technology and a deployable realistic tech. And so you see that in some of our existing deployments. You see here in steel, in a kiln process, and in chemicals, validating that our technology works and does a separation, but also validating that it's real and can stand up to the industrial environment. And that's one of the reasons we're at C2V and looking forward to kicking off next step with new partners like Evonik and Veolia.
So we've been able to benefit from the C2V program across a few different dimensions on our journey to commercialization. Working with our CLC advisors, we've gained new perspectives on markets and customers, and we've also been able to demonstrate some compelling economics for real-world decarbonization use cases. Working in the workshops, we've gained a lot of perspective on project finance and other topics that have helped to inform our commercial roadmap. And the broader ecosystem, the connections and the resources that have been provided to us have been instrumental in this commercialization journey. And I think the reason we've been able to get all that benefit is because we have a technology that's ready for commercialization. Our facilitated transport membranes are able to use chemistry rather than high driving pressures to facilitate this CO2 capture from industrial flue gas sources. And by using a standard repeatable building block in the form of a membrane to build our carbon capture systems, we have something that's modular and scalable like solar PV and lithium-ion batteries, which allows us to take advantage of economies of scale and really drive down CapEx. So if you're interested in what we're doing, we'd love to hear from you. We're currently raising our Series B. We're looking for customers who are ready to put steel in the ground on decarbonization projects. And we are also looking for commercial partners across the value chain. If you'd like to get a hold of us, there's a QR code you can scan here. But thank you so much. We've had a great time participating in this program.
All right, thank you so much, Erica and John. So we all know that carbon emissions happen everywhere, from home heating to energy generation and transportation. And oftentimes when people think about transportation emissions in particular, we think about cars, we think about airplanes, sometimes it's going to be heavy industry, but a lot of times one thing is overlooked, and that is shipping, the thing that brings all of our goods all around the world constantly. So hailing from London, please welcome Alicia Fredrickson, CEO of Seabound, who's going to talk about a solution for that.
I'll Awesome. Thanks so much, Dom. Hey, everyone. I'm Alicia, co-founder and CEO at Seabound, and we capture CO2 emissions directly on board ships. So I thought I'd start by telling you a little bit about why we capture CO2 on ships and what role this technology could play for the industry. So I made a simple napkin diagram for you. So on the y-axis here, we've got CO2 emissions per year from the shipping industry globally. So we're at about 1 billion tons of CO2 at the moment, which is about 3% of global CO2, or about the same as aviation. And then we've got this big target from the IMO, or the International Maritime Organization, which is to hit net zero by 2050. And there's a lot of regulations that come around that, both at a global level and even at a European level. And so ship owners around the world are trying to figure out how are they going to comply with these regulations and keep their ships on the water. So we've got energy efficiency solutions, which are certainly a no-brainer in many cases. We've got new green fuels like ammonia and methanol, which are certainly critical solutions, but unlikely to be available in the volumes that the shipping industry needs, especially because we're facing competition from aviation and others. And so that's where carbon capture can play this really critical role to get us to zero. This is especially true for the existing ships on the water that can't use these new types of fuels yet. But even for new ships, we can combine carbon capture to be this flexible add-on. So we've got a modular device, we call them our Seabound containers, which connect to a ship's exhaust gas with very minimal retrofitting. It's basically piping. And then at port, we swap out the full containers for empty containers to do more capture. Inside the Seabound containers, so they're filled with little pebbles of lime, which basically soak up the CO2 and turn into limestone. So we basically make limestone on ships. It's a very simple process. You can imagine a box of rocks, and the more CO2 you want to capture, the more Seabound containers you stack on board. Then on shore, a couple of things can happen. Either we sell the limestone to be used as a building material, or we do the opposite reaction, separating the limestone back into lime and CO2. So we could turn the CO2 into new products or sequester it, and then we could reuse the lime in another Seabound container. So in 2023, we did our first pilot, which was actually a world first, capturing CO2 at about 80% efficiency in one of our first prototypes. This was with a big German shipping company called Hapag-Lloyd and with a Greek owner called Lomar. And my team and I actually took turns sailing on board the ship for months to run the trials. In 2024, we developed our modular system, going from a proof of concept cylindrical device to baby containers and then toddler containers, and scaling up really quickly. And this year, we're actually delivering the first full-scale Seabound containers to customers. So we secured our first order just a few months ago from a big cement company. So we'll be capturing CO2 on a ship that carries cement. And then funnily enough, they will buy the limestone from us and put it into their cement kiln. So it's a nice little synergy. We're also finishing up our second paid pilot at the moment. We'll be raising a Series A and building the first containers. So I'll share a quick highlight from C2V, which is partnering with Caterpillar. We're actually looking at using their marine engine testing center for testing the Seabound containers. Unfortunately, their fuel was actually too clean for us. There wasn't enough sort of nasty stuff to capture, but maybe in the future we'll be able to partner with them on that. So I'll just say thank you from the whole Seabound team, to Dom, to Fred, to the rest of the partners, Caterpillar and Shell in particular. It's been an amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. So we've heard about the carbon in the air, we've heard about it coming from a point source on the ground, and we've heard about the ships, but what about the water? So next, I want to welcome Dan Deviri, CEO of Israel-based startup Carbon Blue.
Thank you, Dom. So I am Dr. Dan Deviri, the co-founder and CEO of Carbon Blue. And in Carbon Blue, we develop technologies to help existing industries decarbonize their value chains using water. Specifically, we develop two types of technologies. One is a technology to produce lime in a sustainable way while capturing all the carbon dioxide emissions associated with lime production, providing low carbon lime. The second technology is to use that low carbon lime to capture carbon dioxide using existing water infrastructure, creating high quality calcium carbonate that can be used in industry. But that's not the only way to use lime. You have heard another way from Alicia just now, and it's actually the fourth most produced material worldwide. So it can be used to decarbonize lots of industrial value chains. During the program, the C2V program, we worked with two partners, with Veolia and Fluor, whom I want to thank, and we were able to come up and take our technology and make it into a product by getting access to available pieces of technology, customer discovery, and very valuable engineering insights. And this is only the beginning. We are now on the verge of commercialization, and I want to ask all of you, if you are consumers of high-quality carbon dioxide or calcium carbonate, what is known as PCC, or are you owners or operators of water infrastructure, desalination, wastewater treatment facility, cooling infrastructure, and so on, or you use lime for whatever operation you're doing, come and talk with us. Of course, we are always raising both equity and debt, so if you are investors interested in hearing more, come talk to me later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan. So now we're going to shift away from capturing carbon to talk about one of the biggest uses of carbon in the world, which is plastics. And plastics often end up in the landfill. And just like the carbon emitting into our atmosphere, it's a waste. So next up, from my hometown, Boston-based Stuart Pena-Feliz, CEO of Macrocycle, who has a solution for all this. Welcome, Stuart.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stuart Pena, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Macrocycle Technologies, the venture creating circular plastics with zero carbon emissions. Macrocycle is facing this global crisis head-on, a crisis that is amplified by the fact that 85% of all global CO2 emissions can be associated to the plastic that ends up in our landfills, in our oceans, or it is incinerated. This results in 6% of all global CO2 emissions to be associated to the plastic life cycle, a $600 billion linear economy that is polluting our environment and is poised to grow to over $1 trillion by the beginning of the next decade. To address this crisis head-on, Macrocycle is commercializing our Solvogenesis platform, a technology that is able to take plastic waste of any quality, starting with a cheap and dirty feedstock of PET plastics and polyester textiles. We're able to extract the plastic out of any number of contaminants, separating those contaminants away, and then we're able to conduct our proprietary chemistry to upcycle its quality. We then are able to remove the contaminants like dyes and colors from the plastic to produce a virgin gray solution that can serve as a drop-in solution for any packaging or textile brands for their applications. And we can do this with zero carbon emissions and no green premium required for adoption. So that is our technology. But in this presentation, I actually wanted to highlight how the C2V came to be very valuable to us to get to this point. When we applied to the program, we had two decisions. We had a decision to make based on two different paths. Do we build our own plant to commercialize our technology, or do we go the contract manufacturing route? With this, BASF and Evonik were the two organizations that we worked the most closely with to be able to answer this question. With BASF, we worked to understand what it takes to actually scale up chemistry and develop technology at scale, specifically with our reactor and computational flow device simulations. But the one that actually impacted us the most was with Evonik. Shout out to Jenny. Thank you for your assistance in helping us understand what it takes to actually scale up our technology to contract manufacturing. The network, the connection, the individuals, understanding the engineering, unlocked our perspective to where we actually have made the decision as of this week that we're going to continue to scale up through contract manufacturing to be able to expedite the impact that our technology can have in this world. But we won't be doing this by ourselves because we're going to need all the help that we can. And with that, the C2V network is here to assist us, whether it is from investors, teaching us how to get this project funded, potential suppliers that are already collecting this waste, potential customers that can utilize our recycled alternatives, or EPC firms that can help us scale up once we decide to build our industrial plant. We're appreciative to be here. We're thankful for the support and the network, and I'm excited to collaborate with all of you because together we can create a cleaner, more circular future for everyone today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. So we've covered the carbon capture industry and chemical recycling. So now let's talk about what to do with the CO2 once you capture it. And so some companies take the commodity approach. So they're making building materials, or they're making chemicals, or plastics. But this next company is taking a high value approach, making graphite anode materials. So really excited to welcome to the stage Drew Reed, CEO of California-based company, Maple Materials.
Hey guys, very excited to be here. My name is Drew Reed, co-founder and CEO of Maple Materials, and we turn point source CO2 into graphite and oxygen. So graphite anode material for lithium-ion batteries is actually the largest end use for graphite, but this material is made from oil. It goes through this incredibly expensive and time-consuming process where it has to be transferred through multiple refineries all around the world. It ends up traveling 30,000 miles, and it ends up actually being one of the most carbon-intensive industrial products that is in use today. But at Maple, we are doing things differently. So we're producing, turning point source CO2 into graphite anode material for 1/3 the cost. We've developed a revolutionary new approach that cuts production time down to just 10 days, and we can do this without any CO2 emissions. So the core behind this is our patented molten carbonate electrolysis process. And this is what we use to transform CO2 into graphite and oxygen. And when powered by renewable energy, this is actually a carbon negative solution. So it's consuming and eliminating 3.7 tons of CO2 for every ton of graphite that we produce. And today we're excited to announce that we've signed a materials evaluation agreement with one of the leading EV companies in the US. So they're going to be qualifying and testing our material for use in their EV fleet. At our time at C2V, we were really able to expand upon our battery work with our CLC partners. So with Evonik, we've been developing a new next generation silicon carbon composite anode material. It holds 10 times more energy than graphite. We're actually able to apply to government grants to fund this as well. And then with Fraunhofer, we developed a new application developing cathode materials for lithium sulfur batteries. So these are very high energy density batteries that are used in drones and aircraft and all sorts of vehicles. And with Caterpillar, we identified unique US-based CO2 sources that can feed into our process and make these graphite materials to feed into the end applications. So our time at C2V was really useful, really valuable, learned a bunch of stuff, and we're really excited to continue engaging with the CLC partners that we had a chance to interact with, and would also love to talk to anyone else in the audience and other CLC members, obviously anyone that's focused on decarbonization or anyone that's anywhere in the graphite manufacturing value chain or the lithium-ion battery value chain. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Drew. So next, let's take a train ride across the border to Quebec and focus on a different kind of chemical energy from batteries, which is fuels. So I'd like to welcome Joachim Kamstra, CEO of C2V.
My name is Joachim Kamstra. I'm the CEO of C2V, and I'm very excited to share with you what we have achieved in this amazing program in the past 6 months. But before we start there, let's have a quick glance at what C2V does and who we are. So we convert captured CO2 and water into synthetic gas, which is a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And we do this via an electrical thermal reaction. We heat the system up to 700 Celsius. And we have an iron-based catalyst that converts the CO2 and water into syngas. And our technology allows us to create a product that has a 80% lower carbon intensity and no green premium. And when I say those two things, what does it really mean? If we compare ourselves to making syngas from natural gas, then our cost production is on par with that of natural gas, and our carbon intensity is 80% lower. A very quick secant at a glance. On the left, you see the executive team. Myself as the CEO, I bring 20 years of experience in commercial project development in the energy and industry market. Bruna, our CTO, who's here in the room with me today, brings 12 years of experience in CO2 conversion technologies. And Mark, our CFO, has 20 years of experience in the financial markets. We're currently moving from TRL5 to TRL6. We're starting the deployment of our pilot in June this year. We just opened our seed round, and we're actively growing the team. We have 6 additional technical people starting with us this year. Specifically, what did we get out of the C2V program? We got a lot of different things out of it, but I'll focus on 3 very concrete items that came out of it, and maybe a little bit of background. Second Fuel was actually founded in June last year. So when we entered this program, we were the baby in the room. So the first part was really, it created tremendous focus for us. The technology was originally developed to go from CO2 to syngas to methanol. And through a lot of conversations with CLC members in the C2V, we realized that the core novelty of our technology is really to go from CO2 to syngas, and we decided to purely focus on that and partner with other people if we want to go to other materials. It's brought us a lot of collaboration and partnerships, obviously with everyone in the room, the C2V, the other startups, and the CLC, but also with other ecosystem builders. The C2V is a well-known program, and one of the examples is that we're now talking to a SAF developer in Quebec for a project. Last but not least, we build a lot of knowledge. As I mentioned, we were founded last year. A key part of every startup is their scaling up roadmap development. There's been a lot of conversations into C2V. We had a lot of excellent workshops and presentations, and it really has allowed us to build a very robust scaling up map. Our 3 partners were Evonik, BASF, and Johnson Matthey, and I hope to move forward with them. So in essence, a huge thank you from all of us to all of you, not only to the program, but everyone here in the room. And as next steps for us, specifically with the CLC members, we're looking at co-development of the catalyst. We're also in discussions for the reactor scaling and co-development of that. We're looking for advisor roles with them and for pilot locations, and specifically for Second Fuel. As I mentioned, we started our seed round, and we're very excited to start our pilot this summer. Thank you.
Thanks, Joachim. So since we started our fuels business with syngas, which is a building block chemical, let's add like 11 or 12 carbon or so and look at an end product. So it's a pleasure to introduce you to Peter Shepard, COO of New Jersey startup Renew CO2.
Thank you. It's been tremendously rewarding to be part of the C2V program, learning and collaborating with the cohort members and leadership team. So it's really been a terrific program. We're Renew CO2, company's based in Somerset, New Jersey. We have a team of about 14 people focused on affordable, sustainable aviation fuel and chemicals. 11 million to date, 9 million non-dilutive, 2 million from a pre-seed round. Our focus is producing electrolyzers that can generate chemicals and fuels. What makes us different in this space is we can take CO2 and turn that into a multi-carbon liquid product with a high efficiency, and that leads to affordable products. Because we can make a multi-carbon liquid product, it lends itself to a very simple process to convert that intermediate into a final product, aviation fuel. So we go through CO2, water, and put that through an electrolyzer and produce a C3. We chain extend that with a very simple coupling process and then hydrogenate that to make fuel. We don't need a Fischer-Tropsch process to do that, which is very capital intensive and energy intensive. We need 60% less hydrogen to produce the fuel at the end of the process, and overall we get a very good energy efficiency. This allows us to meet the SAF targets, which are somewhat out of reach today, so we can reduce cost operating costs down to below $4 in the $3.50 per gallon range. And that's very competitive with what the existing fuel is today. And we can do that while reducing emissions more than 90% than Jet A. We came into the program with a number of objectives: broaden our relationships in the clean tech industry with investors and service providers, establish and strengthen some relationships with the corporate strategics, and expand the network with complementary carbon to value companies. And I'd say we've achieved all of those. We work closely with Johnson Matthey, a major catalyst provider. We need catalysts, and so it was a nice fit. And so we've established a relationship with them and secured some catalyst supply to provide a foundation for some of our downstream processes. With Shell, we've been working with them on and off in the past, but this program really helped us deepen that relationship. And as a result of that, we were selected for a $250,000 joint development program that'll be announced in the coming months. With Evonik, we have future work planned with them on catalysis, membranes, and downstream products. They're also supporting us in some of the government applications that we have. And lastly, with the C2V team, the cohort and leadership, really valuable discussions and discussion groups around key elements of how we get from where we are today at lab scale to commercial scale. So it's really, really valuable. Lastly, so in summary, we think of SAF as sustainable, affordable, and feedstock that's plentiful and low cost. So we'd love to work with you and come decarbonize with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So now before we line up at the bar to get some ethanol, let's look at a different kind of alcohol, which is methanol. So pleasure to introduce, last but not least, Connecticut-based Harrison Meyer, COO of Oxalis Energy.
Hello, my name is Harrison Meyer, and I'm the COO and co-founder of Oxalis Energy, and we're the carbon conversion company. Though there are many carbon conversion companies out here, and they're all great, and we convert CO2 directly to methanol. And as Dom said, it's not ethanol, so you can't drink it, and I would recommend not drinking it because it can make you go blind. However, CO2 to methanol is a good thing because right now, for the hard-to-abate sectors, they require fuel. They require rich, dense hydrocarbons for the hard-to-abate sectors. Now, the hard-to-abate sectors of aviation, shipping, and chemicals are currently responsible for around 11% of global emissions today. And they need that fuel to decarbonize. But right now, when they're looking at other alternatives, they're looking at e-methanol, or hydrogen or ammonia. And hydrogen and ammonia have energy density issues, infrastructure compatibility, and issues regarding CapEx. E-methanol right now requires green hydrogen. Now, what we do differently on this screen here is we convert CO2 and water directly into methanol with electricity. This means a one-step reaction to green methanol that can integrate with existing oil and gas infrastructure. This allows for industry cost leadership and, importantly, environmental performance. Comparing this to biomethanol, you don't need that food or fuel dilemma when you're converting biofeedstocks to fuel. And it also has lower water consumption requirements. Because of this, the lack of green hydrogen input means more efficiency, can scale, and can take advantage of dynamic loads, which means it can use renewable electricity today. And so we've got numerous awards for this technology as part of C2V, including carbon conversion awards recognized from the World Economic Forum as well as heat map. But what's really exciting about being here today is working with the C2V members. We focused on mentoring and peer learning from our fellow cohort and the CLC members, industry connections, and refinement of our strategy and value prop. So we've all done this in service of building our pilot that'll be in the ground next year, building these corporate partnerships, strengthening our initial target market, and mentorship on our Series A strategy. And we'd like to thank some of the CLC members here in the room, like Johnson Matthey, for helping us on electrode scaling up for our DOE pilot, talking to BASF for methanol offtake for thermochemical production, talking with Evonik also about methanol sourcing and supply chain, looking for further methanol offtake, and further looking to the European markets for CO2 utilization. Now, who we are is we're creating a zero-emission Earth through a circular economy for carbon dioxide. And we do this by defossilizing the hard-to-abate sectors of aviation, shipping, and chemicals. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Harrison, and thank you to all the startups. I know it's pretty hot in here, and I know you're getting thirsty and itchy to go and network with these amazing entrepreneur innovators and our fellow CLC members. So I'm not going to keep you very long, but I did want to do a last thank you to our amazing team, which would not be possible, this program, without, on the UFL side, Jessica Gross, Meg Hicks, Crystal Torres, and Erin Wind. Thank you so much. On the Greentown side, Dom, of course, Marina Teixeira, who I know had to catch a flight, Ashlyn Carlson on the partnership side, and Julie Travaglini on the marketing side. Thank you guys so much. And last but not least, Russ Saras from Fraunhofer. Thank you, Russ. All right, with that, thank you all for coming tonight. Now the fun can start. We have amazing refreshment and food served. Enjoy the view. We are lucky with the weather, and I can't wait to chat with you all. Thank you for coming again tonight.